Thank you so much for joining me on this YouTube channel. And I've got the most amazing, beautiful soul, and he's here to share his experience. It's not even, maybe it's a near-death experience, but he was certainly dead, and he was dead for a long, long time. And he's written two fabulous books. So I'm going to get him to explain the books and what happened while he was dead, because he was dead for 25 minutes, and that's a long, long time. That's pretty much impossible in the medical world. And his journey of what actually happened when the body passed away, the story and the books are just so beautiful. So I'm so honored that he's given me his time to share his experience, and his name is Edmonds, and he's a beautiful man. So I'll just get him to explain his books and the names of his books if you're interested. So thanks, Hone. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, John. I'm very honoured to be on the program.
And it's raining there. He's in the Bay of Islands, which is in New Zealand, which is a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. So if you're ever over there, go and contact him. And he actually does spiritual retreats and lots of things. So I'm just going to be quiet now and just let Hone take over. So first of all, what's the name of your books?
Thank you, John, for having me, and also greetings to everybody. The two books that I've written, one's called Beyond the Horizon, Into the Light, Return from Death. That came out in 2013. So it was. I wasn't really that keen to share something so personal to the world previously, but I was writing a journal of my journey for myself, and I think Spirit just said it needed to be shared, and so that came out in 2013. And the other one came out, which is called The Emissaries, The Beasts of the Code. That came out in 2016. And that also, I wanted to write that one as a story, from a historical novel point of view. And the parts of my journey I never shared in my first book, I put a lot of those scenes and the characters of the story in the second book. So I just thought it was very pertinent to be able to write a story that culminated in bringing together some of the periods of history that we were led to believe as being true.
Interesting.
And it's a love story as well too.
Oh, beautiful. So tell me, just leading up to what happened there. So what were you doing when whatever happened to you? So just tell me that story.
I think prior to the cardiac arrest, because it was a cardiac arrest, I've got nothing wrong with my heart at all. I've got an electronic, it's a congenital defect in the part of the brain of the autonomic system, which controls blinking, swallowing, digesting, heartbeat, and so on, breathing. And that part doesn't communicate very well with the brain, with the heart. And so I collapsed about 4 times over the 3 or 4 years prior. But I also had low blood pressure, and they seemed to have been periods where it was hot. They were hot days, and so I put it down to me fainting with low blood pressure. So sadly, a typical male doesn't go to the doctor. I always recommend to people, if you're not feeling well, get it checked out. So I was in my clinic at the time, working with a client. I had a wellness clinic, and so that's where it happened.
Okay. All right. So did you just collapse, go into cardiac arrest and collapse? Or?
Apparently so. just from what I was told was I fell back against the wall, slid down, and then I came to, and then my heart stopped beating properly, and that's when it started to happen after that. Yeah, all the bells and whistles started to alert, and
Wow.
so the person that was with me at the time, I owe my life to her, and I love her dearly for what she did, and calling the ambulance, paramedics, fire people, and if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here today. If it wasn't for a lot of people, actually, I wouldn't be here today. So I just want to say a
Yeah.
special, heartfelt thanks. I've said it so many times to her, but I just want to say my thanks to Delwyn, my beautiful friend Delwyn, and also to Niels Duggan, who was the American doctor who saw me in ICU when I was admitted into ICU. My family, my mother, who's passed on now, and also to my children. They were just fantastic, and my friends who were there as well. So, yeah, a lot of people just to feel very grateful for in my life.
Mm. So tell, just if you don't mind, just tell the audience what happened then. So you had the cardiac arrest, and then what happened to you?
At the time, all I remember was that I remember looking down upon my body and seeing the panic on Delwyn's face. Well, not just in her face, just in her body language. I mean, she was at her end's tether trying to work out what to do. So she called the 111, and they gave her instructions over the phone. And the ambulance and paramedics, 5 people arrived. There were 4 of them working on me,
And you were watching this. You were observing everything.
I was observing. I saw my body on the ground. I could see them working on my body. I could feel the energy coming from the defibrillations. They were doing chest compressions on me. I remember hearing the cracks, and I suppose those cracks were my sternum, because I had my sternum cracked, and I had 3 ribs, 2 ribs broken, and I had 2 ribs had popped out in my spine.
Yeah.
And but I could also feel the energy coming from the defibrillations, like a wave, like I was going to say cosmic wave. It was more like an atomic wave coming up and hitting me in the face, although I didn't have a face. And I could see my body jumping off the ground when they were doing the defibs. And it was a very tense situation, but I wasn't feeling like I was part of that panic, that angst that was going on. I felt like I was just observing the whole scene and thinking to myself, what is that guy doing lying on the floor wearing my clothes? I couldn't add that part together that said, that is me down there, but because I kept thinking, well, if that's me down there, well, who am I observing this whole scenario before me taking place? And so that part of me now has been like a sacred scripture for me, because I don't look at myself as being the I don't look at myself as being the body. We're not our thoughts either. because they're all coming from the mind, from the brain. And we give too much credit to the brain. We have the brain leading our vehicle in life when really it should be from here. And this is the part of this new journey now that I'm so privileged to be able to use as the driver in this vehicle that operates now, and following my heart rather than following this crazy, messed up, erratic part of it's chaos. It's totally chaos. So when our minds are so mixed up and I switch it all off. I'm just able now just to switch it all off, and it's the same when I'm listening to other people who are just constantly I don't know what to say. Maybe it's just called blah blah blah. I just switch off immediately. It's something in life I'm not quite that proficient at, and I don't want to be proficient at blah 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 anymore. So I'm very selective about the people that
what you take in,
what I take in now.
So did you feel you said that when you were the observer you didn't actually sort of feel like the anxiety or the panic or anything like that. So can you recall what you were feeling, if anything?
I don't remember feeling any panic. No, you're right. All I was doing was just like being in a movie theater, watching a movie, playing out, performing. And I think it's probably it's like if you've been in I've never been in a film, but being able to watch yourself on film and being able to dislocate, take yourself out from that scene and be able to watch that. And all I felt was serenity and peace. I didn't take it to heart. I just let it. In Turkey, there's a saying that we say over there called bushver, which means just let it go. Just let it go. And I just let it go. It was just a matter of just letting whoever was operating this whole scenario, this journey, God, whatever we can call it, the universal force, was doing all the work for me. All I needed to do was enjoy this journey, this ride.
Wow. So
I don't want people to think that it's like a ride, like a fairground or a roller coaster. It's not that kind of a journey. This is a very, very deep spiritual. It's a very sacred and it's a very beautiful journey that is totally encased of love I've not felt before on the earth. It's that type of journey. A journey that you just don't want to ever end.
That's right. So, okay. So what happened after that then? So you were there, you're observing yourself, you're watching the paramedics and that. So what happened after that? What for that? And
well, after they took my body away, it was in a coma after that. And my family were told that the chances of me surviving overnight were very slim. And so they were all called to come and say their last words. And by that period, I was just, I remember seeing myself with the tubes in my mouth and devices hooked on me in the hospital. I was, it was not a very happy, it wasn't a very it was a very poignant scene, a surreal scene that what happens next. But whoever was orchestrating this whole play that was being rolled out had full control of it, what was going on. And so I just let the film go, so to speak. And I remember moving away further and further and further, and my family at my bedside, and then all of a sudden I looked behind me and saw this incredible spatial world of blackness. And in the distance, I could see this very, very fine light, like a laser. And I was just mesmerized by this light. Every time I think of that light, I get really emotional for some reason. And then on the right-hand side, I could see what looked like pictures on an art gallery wall that just went like into a tunnel, just disappeared. And I went to one of the pictures and I looked in, and I saw a period of me in another life that I remembered, that I had forgotten about, and that all of a sudden I was back in that lifetime like I was just there yesterday. I remembered everything. And then I came out, and then I peered into another picture and I saw another one. Same thing happened. And then I came out and I went into another one and saw that my family, my children at that period. And where I lived, there were periods where I lived in the desert. There were periods where I lived in like pagan lifetimes. I only can guess that they must have been pagan lifetimes, because it was all about honoring. We were dancing around the fire and jumping over the fire, and it was nighttime, and we were giving offerings to the moon and these kinds of things. And there were other periods where I was living in the ice, and my family and I was hunting for whales and seals. And I know you would never ever dream of eating one now, but there were periods where I was just salivating, wanting to eat blubber and whale and seal meat and fish. And there are other periods where I lived in dry, mountainous regions. There were other periods where I lived in the desert. I remember three of those lifetimes being extraordinarily at home in the desert, and I suppose this is one of the reasons why Spirit took me over to Turkey. And it wasn't until I got to the border of the Middle East when I realised that everything there was familiar, very familiar for me. And I felt quite at home there, and the whānau, the people there, made me feel so well.
It was a soul memory.
It was a soul memory, and it was like there was one old lady and one old man, both Arab-looking people, and it was like they knew who I was, and I knew who they were, and it was like I knew them from one of those past life periods that I had experienced. So
the energy's familiar.
The energies were familiar. And so as I was looking into each of these past lives with incredible emotion, the light was in front of me was getting bigger and bigger. And as I looked towards the doorway to this light, I could see a silhouette. I think there was about 4, maybe 5 figures standing in the light, in the door of the light. They were definitely my grandmother and grandfather, who I was very close to, and a couple of my aunties, a nanny who used to look after me. In Māoridom, the oldest son was generally raised by an old woman, an old nanny. So I was looked after for a period of time by her. And, I love my nanny immensely. And then there was a young man, Maori boy, tall boy, with his hand on my grandmother's shoulder. And I knew everybody there, but I couldn't work out who in the world was this person. I couldn't work it out. And seemed like for me, it took a long time, but then I realized that the more that he was looking at me and the more that he was smiling, his face was just so filled with light, I started to realize, my goodness, you're not Tane, my son, are you? And as soon as I asked that question, he just smiled. And I just lost it. I just lose it every time I think about that particular period, because, I mean, I wouldn't wish it upon anybody for them to lose one of their children before they go. And that period of my life when we had twins, and so one of our twins passed away at the age of 5 weeks. I didn't have the skills back then to be able to heal from my grieving and
to cope. Yeah.
I mean, I do now. I teach grieving now, and so.
And he was there. He was one of the ones. He was one of the ones greeting you.
That was a beautiful part of being able to reconnect with Tani again, and with everybody actually. But none of them actually spoke to me except for my grandfather. He was the only one that spoke to me. It was like he was the rangatira, the chief, that was giving all the information that I needed to know whilst there. And everything there looked familiar. I don't want to call it heaven because I'm not a religious person. All I refer to it as just the most beautiful place of love I've ever felt my entire life. And I think when you know, it's one of the things that we all have that are sure that we are going to have in our life going forward is we already have one now, which is life. That's assured. We also are assured of another one, which is death, which to me is eternal life, because I don't remember being dead. So that's assured. And the other one is love. I know what love is like on the earth, but the love is extraordinarily powerful there. And that is assured, and that is eternal also. And
that's what's waiting for us.
That's what's waiting for all of us.
Always describe that as it's not an emotion. Humans put love as a construct, as a human emotion, but the love that you're talking about, that's a frequency. So then when you leave this density and you go up and you transition because you're into that frequency, you can't even describe it. There's no human words to describe that love. And it sounds like that's what you were tapping into, and that's kind of what you're talking about.
I mean, the place I talk about whilst there in quite detail is in my first book, where the water is the clearest I've ever seen. The mountains were beautiful. The skies were beautiful. I remember seeing birds. I tended to recollect that they were white, mostly white. If anything, they were mostly white. I don't remember buildings. I don't remember feeling hungry. I don't remember food. I don't. but yet I had all my desires quenched in every way. And that's the aspect that I wasn't looking for anything. All I was doing that whole time there, and by then it felt like I was there for months, because we must remember that there is no time there. You can have the past and the future and the present all rolled into one.
Mm.
And it's just an incredible journey that you don't feel any pain, any fear, any anxiety, any worry, any confusion. All you feel like is that you're on this incredible journey that's just where everything is taken care for you. And I look forward to that period when it happens in its own time, when it does happen again. Yeah. And it felt
Certainly
like
nothing to be afraid of.
No, there was nothing to be. It was quite the paradox, to be honest.
Mm.
And it felt like I was there for months. And my grandfather came to me one day. I don't remember seeing any night either, actually. There was a period where my grandfather came to me and said, because I remember going backwards and forwards every so often to visit my body. It was all full of tubes. My mouth was like, these things on my body and on my legs, and I looked like bones after a while, and I kept, and then I saw my children. My son was sitting beside the bed with his legs outstretched, with his arms folded, just with his hand beside me. And my other son had he was facing me with his head on my body, face down on my body. And they were at the ends tether. And then I was watching them, just observing them. And then all of a sudden, my son, who had his head down on my body, looked up to the ceiling, and I could see tears. And that affected me enormously. I just didn't even know that I wasn't feeling any sadness. And the moment I saw the tears in his eyes, I realized that they were without their father. And the whole event then started to hit home for me about how much sadness I had left behind. And then my grandfather came to me, and he just said, "So what do you want to do?" And I looked at him as if to say, "What do you mean?" Mm. And he didn't answer me. It was almost like he said, "You know what I mean. You know what I mean." And we kept looking at the children at my bedside and my body, and looking around where I was, thinking, maybe I need to be with my children. And he said, "You can, but it's not that easy. But I'm giving you the choice." And I knew something about that offer showed me that there are very, very few people get the choice to go back. And I had no desire to wanting to go back. It never crossed my mind until I saw my son's tears. Mm. And then my grandfather said, "If you're thinking about going back just for them, you're not going to go back just for them. If you go back, you have work to do, and it's not going to be the work that you have been doing previously." And I kind of wondered a little bit what he meant by that, but then after a period of comprehending what he was saying, the words weren't coming from his mouth. There was no speaking there. I felt like the communication was coming from this part here.
Telepathically, yeah.
And he spoke to me a lot about what I was going to go back for, and essentially just condensing it all down. It was really if I was to choose to go back, I was to go back and plant seeds of love of what this place is like down on the earth, and keep planting seeds. And there will be periods where souls in their awakening will realign themselves to their path of truth. And then there will be other souls who may not have reached their point of awakening, will live their lives shaming and blaming and persecuting. And to be very, very careful of those souls, and to be very careful about who you associate with in that journey. And then I was brought to the times where many others who had come to the earth who were persecuted, and we know many who were. I mean, of course, there were people like Jesus. There were many of those in scriptures who were. Paul, Apostle Paul, went through periods like that. Job went through periods like that. Many other seers and sages and avatars went through tremendous persecution, but kept their path of faith solid and sound on that journey to do what I can only refer it to as the great work. And when my grandfather said, "So do you still want to go back now?" And I thought, it felt like it took me a long time to make the decision. Do I really want to go back and take up this
mission?
This mission. And the carrot dangling in front of me was, of course, to be with my children, because they were still at school at that time, and in high school, and they were in the midst of their exams. And so I decided to say, yes, I will. I'll do what it takes. And then he just said, "So off you go." And just like that, I woke up and looked down and saw my body lying on the bed, with my ribcage was just the bones were protruding out through my skin. I had lost so much weight. Wow. I was in the body of a very, very emaciated person. I didn't recognize my body. And as soon as I came back into my body, the pain was just unbearable. It was incredible. I couldn't believe I couldn't breathe. My ribcage had been all pretty much caved in, and I found it so hard to breathe. And my son previously had been holding my hand, felt my hand squeeze his hand to start with, and then they were like surprised. And then Ricky just said, "Dad, are you there?" And I groaned. I made a noise, he said, and then he said, "Are you okay?" And the first word to come out of my mouth was the word hungry. And he said, "What are you hungry for, Dad?" And I said, "I want water, and I want Kinners." And if you're a Kiwi, you will know what Kinners are. And Kinners are my favorite food.
Kinnas are sea urchins for people overseas. They're sea urchins. They're like a sea egg with spikes on them, and you dig the meat out.
That's right, and they're a bit of a delicacy here in New Zealand. And as soon as I said the word kinnas, apparently the children just laughed and laughed and said,
Dad's back.
Dad's back. Yeah.
This is actually him. Yep.
Yeah, so the beginning of the journey for the first 5 years was extraordinarily hard for me, really. It was learning to live this new life again and staying solidly in my truth. There was no way that I was going to ever go back to being unconscious anymore. There was no way that I kind of felt more like the activation of critical thought was very present in me. If somebody said I needed to do this, I could see through their truth nature and know that what they were impressing upon me was for my highest self. And then I would see other people that I didn't know, I didn't meet, like, television politicians and all that kind of stuff. I had no desire whatsoever to believe anything they imparted, because I just could read through people. And
it just didn't resonate with you anymore.
I didn't resonate whatsoever, and to this very day, I don't resonate I know the difference. All I can say is that I know the difference between light and dark, truth and untruth. And I get to meet people, to see spirit, and all these other things that I brought back with me. I can communicate with people without even speaking to them, to be honest. I can pretty much get their whole life journey roll out. As soon as I see someone in his eyes, I get to see their journey, their pains as well. And I just feel like I want to hug them, because they've gone through a lot in their lives. Most people have, and they feel a little bit entrapped in their lives. And I just feel like now that I'm a vehicle now to being able to help them grow more spiritually as a person, and being able to use more or trusting more in their heart center. And I mean, it's all about heart. It's very, very little about mind, and there's a lot of this going on in the world.
100%.
So I'm very, I suppose I'm very, I don't know about the word mindful, it's mind empty, but I'm very aware of protecting myself on this journey now, and making sure that it goes through my my truth meter, I suppose you can call it.
Your filter.
My filter, yeah. So it's been every day for me since coming out of the coma. It feels like a dream. I mean, to have met some incredible, those of the light, of the truth, I refer to them as emissaries of the light. And so when I meet other emissaries or other people that are coming into their own truth, their own knowing, I just feel like they are part of the one consciousness that I hold within here. And the outpouring of support and love that I have for those who are wanting to foster more of their journey, I feel some sense of contentedness and satisfaction that I'm able to play upon them a small part to help them progress in their journey with a bit more clarity in their life. What I went through, and so that is part of one of the things of this so-called God mission that I'm on now on this journey. Before I go back again. And,
so how do you like your life now compared to post NDE or pre NDE compared to that life?
I mean, it was a beautiful life growing up. I'm a farm boy, really. We grew up on a farm, and so I had the gift, the blessing of being able to grow up with animals and being free and riding horses and being up in the hills and doing the stuff that children should be doing, and I mean, just like many other lives and families, that it didn't always go smooth sailing, and I share about that in my first book and in the second book also. But life is a little bit like a smorgasbord. We take from it that which resonates to us, and then we remove everything else that doesn't. But when I came back in this new life, I had my whole hard drive completely wiped. And what I mean by that is that there was no ego, there was no fear, there was no worry about anything other than the pain, because of the physical pain.
Physical pain, yeah.
But I knew that over a period of weeks and months that would slowly heal. But when you have your heart rewired again, things that I used to be conditioned to in my old life, I didn't have any interest or desire to wanting to do those kinds of things anymore. It was a little bit embarrassing because when I saw a television in what was, I didn't even know I had a house, but when I was taken to my house and the TV came on, I just felt the energy, and I just said, turn that horrible thing off. What the hell is that? And that was one of the first things I got rid of. And I really find it difficult being in a room that's got the energy of that box in a room. And so I tend to be a little bit more drawn to nature. So I spent 70% of my year last year in my tent in the forest. That was because I was unable to go back to Turkey because of what was going on with this. I think it's got something to do with COVID and inability to travel overseas. And so I just decided that the safest place for me to be would be in the forest, and in my tents. And so I love being in nature.
You went camping?
In my tent, yeah. About a year, maybe about probably 15 months ago, I became plant-based. I was always not that comfortable eating meat anymore, dairy. Coming back into my new life, I wasn't really a dairy person anyway. But I was slowly becoming disinterested in eating another sentient creature. My love for animals was too great. And so I enjoy that, and I think that every sentient creature deserves the right to die, but it doesn't need to die because of my stomach. And So plant-based has been my life now, and it's been a really important part of my journey, and also as part of like taking care of my physical temple as well too.
So and you do meditations and stuff like that. Is that correct?
That's a really good question, John. What I mean, yeah, it's a question I get asked a lot. Is, you know, how often do I meditate? What is meditation?
Good question.
What is meditation first? Because a lot of meditation is very much like consciousness. We don't lose our consciousness as we are conditioned into this world, into this life. The consciousness is always there, the awareness is always there, the meditation is always there, but we cover it up with belief systems and expectations and pressure. We come into this life thinking that we're on probation, we have something, we need to prove ourselves in this life. It's totally incorrect. We have everything. We have everything that we brought with us intact. And what I think helped me productively was I got rid of all the shit in my life that I had in my past life. And a lot of it was attachments. Walked away from attachments, house, car, clothes, stuff, junk that just gathered dust in the house, and focusing on everything that matters more in my life than all the stuff. And so the attachments also were belief systems as well too, because I don't think I had any other belief system, because they were all wiped. So I had to start again like I was a newborn baby, relearning. And so it was very easy for me to filter out what I wanted and what I didn't want in my life, what was serving me to my highest good or not. And that was very easy for me to do. And so in terms of answering that question about meditation, is that life is the meditation. It's important that we realize that we just don't sit quietly in a room for 45 minutes to an hour and say, right, this is my meditation time. That is all good, although the objective life itself should be the meditation, and that we breathe in gratitude and faith and love and breathe out doubt, all the doubts that we have, and breathe in love and gratitude, and then breathe and express out the heart. This is where aroha comes from. It's the heart, it's the expelling of all that which doesn't resonate with us and doesn't serve us to our highest good. And so life itself becomes the meditation, the breath, each breath, because I didn't have a breath for 25 minutes. I didn't have a heartbeat for 25 minutes. And so one of the things that I always wake up to is, what is the first thing that people do when they wake up in the morning? What is it?
Oh.
They reach across, turn off their alarm, and grab their phone.
They do these days.
I didn't have it. I threw it away. I threw mine away. And so the first thing I do when I wake up every single morning is that I just give thanks for the fact that I'm breathing, that I'm the breath. I mean, how often do we do that in our day, just to be able to wake and not rush, but just to spend just even 30 seconds to a minute, just to give solemn, devout thanks for the breath of life.
Mm-hmm.
And once we do that, that is the meditation. We start our day with a meditation.
Mm.
So
Yes, that's beautiful. I used to for years. Before I'd wake up, I'd keep my eyes closed and I'd just say to myself, today is a new day. It's up to me what I make of it. And then I'd open my eyes and I'd get out of bed.
And I think it's like a plane taking off. It's a very, very gradual process, taxing out. Everything's very, very slowly until you feel like that you've got control of we're acknowledging the energy body, we're acknowledging the spiritual body, we're acknowledging the physical body, and we're acknowledging the mental body. And once we acknowledge all those that are out there, we are now in control to start our day the way that we want it to be, not the way the world wants us to be or the way that we expect ourselves to be, but the way that we hold ourselves spiritually within, that we can start our day and then we can just take off in our own pace. And that there is the meditation in itself. It becomes meditation right until we go back to sleep at the end of the day.
It's the flow-on effect. Yeah.
I think there was a poem that I wrote in my first book where I just I'll just summarize very briefly what it was about, but it just talks about the humans, they go to sleep and dream the dreams of all the wonder and love and possibilities of what might and can be, and then they wake up the next morning asleep. They forgot who they were, and then they turn into the robots like we see in the Pink Floyd, we don't need no education, we're just like robots going about our day. And we forget about all the gifts that we have within ourselves that enables us to navigate our way in this journey, that serves us to our highest will. And I think we need to spend a little bit more time in that, in getting the information that serves us from this godly universal realm. We can only really get that information from a place of stillness and silence. But humanity has lost that direction, and they like to fill it up with noise, like whether it's the radio and blah blah blah, and
busyness.
And they're very, very tolerant, humans. I mean, they can put up with that for 12 hours every single day, and then they kind of decide they want to get away from it all and sit down in front of the television and turn that on and feel like that's giving them a sense of comfort and self-serving.
Yeah, it's the intention behind it.
So
some people are so scared of themselves that most people don't even know who they are.
I didn't know who I was, and I don't want to go back to that again. I mean, it took me 46 years until that happened, before I came into this new body and new life and a new journey again, and I'm still learning still. I think we all, I have deep admiration for those who have come into the awakening teenagers. The greatest alchemists, the greatest Buddhas in the world are the newborn babies that come into the world. And then they get slapped and persecuted and they themselves are turned into square pegs that have been hit and pushed into round holes. And so the greatest
they get taught it.
So the greatest Zen masters to me are newborn babies and animals, cats, dogs. I love animals, and if I feel like that I want to spend time with the Buddha, I will spend time with an animal, with a pet, because they're timeless. They know love, and they are just so forgiving. They don't hold stories or memories of the past that you did this to me and you did that to me, or da da da. It's all unconditional love.
And they live in the present moment.
Completely in the present moment. They're our teachers, and we need to spend more time and acknowledge them more and learn from them. Or just be reminded, because we are the same as well too. All part of that one consciousness.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was absolutely fascinating. So just remind people of the names of your 2 books again.
The first one's called Beyond the Horizon, Into the Light, Return from Death. And the second book is called The Emissaries, Beasts of the Code. And you can pick those up on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or the book depository, or you can just go to a bookshop, and if they don't have it in the bookstore, you can order it from the bookstore as well too. So if anyone wants to go to my group page, I'm looking at having it a website built, and but I have a group page on Facebook which is JHB Edmonds, spiritual teacher and author, and so that's there. And I just want to say a big thank you to you, John, for inviting me onto your beautiful show.
Thank you for coming, and thank you to Mila, who's a mutual friend of ours, for making this happen. Basically, it's the synchronicities in life.
Thank you too, Mila. Looking forward to meeting Mila on my satsang tour in Queenstown.
Yeah, she's wonderful. So thank you, and thank you so much. And I'll put the links to your books down in the comments below. So thank you so much.
Much love.
Forever
grateful. Thank you
grateful.
so much, John.